Well, hello once again, LinkedIn world. Matt West here with CPA.com, and I'm really excited today to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is the world of sales and use tax. So, with me, I have Jeff Dorris of Malden Jenkins, who is the leader of the sales and use tax practice at Malden Jenkins. Jeff, how's it doing down south in Atlanta today?
Weather's beautiful, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Same up here in Michigan. My pleasure. So, one of the things that I've seen and noticed in the last couple of years, because Wayfair was overturned almost 2 years ago to the day, and we've seen a lot of states changing their laws, and businesses who didn't have Nexus in certain states now have Nexus, meaning they're going to have to pay sales tax for doing business within certain states. For those who are listening and attending right now, what have you seen from a Nexus standpoint, state-wise, and how has that impacted some of your clients?
Sure. So, Wayfair was, as short and sweet as we can put it, it was a Supreme Court decision that basically said that a taxpayer can create nexus with a state by simply having or benefiting from a state's economy. They don't actually have to be physically located within that state, although historically that was the nexus creating standards. So when the decision came out in Wayfair versus South Dakota, that was the Supreme Court decision in June of 2018. That was really kind of a paradigm shift of how states are going to determine which businesses create nexus within their states. And then obviously, if you have nexus, then that state can require you to collect their sales tax, file their sales tax returns, and remit their sales tax over to them. So, what you really had was a big shift in kind of that thought process.
And are
And
we starting to see states now becoming more aggressive towards your clients? And what are your clients starting to see?
right, so kind of what happened is when the decision went down for Wayfair, many states didn't have economic nexus statutes on their books. So you kind of had this delay where states had to go and get their statutes updated, right? Because they had it has to be on their laws before they can enforce it. So you had that, and states also kind of understood the complexities and what that meant for businesses, that what they were going to have to do internally to be able to be fully compliant for the new laws. So you kind of had this unofficial grace period. What you're seeing now is that grace period's up. You're roughly 2 years out of Wayfair, right? And you're really seeing states becoming more aggressive. You kind of saw this before COVID-19 and all that, but now you couple that with this perfect storm of states are now losing money because we've been on lockdown for a couple months and that sort of thing, and you're really starting to see these notices come out. We even saw it before this, but I really anticipate you're going to see a ramp up of notices, sales tax related, specifically from Economic Nexus, where taxpayers are having sales into these states and they have not been collecting the tax, they have not been filing the sales tax returns, and that grace, it's an unofficial grace period, but that grace period's over.
You've mentioned two things. One, I've definitely seen an uptick, even in my personal household, of wanting to purchase things online. A, because I can get a deal, and B, I can find precisely what I look for. And that's just a nationwide trend. But then also, we've seen a lot of the workforce now starting to work from home. So, both from a buyer demand perspective and then workforce now working remote, that has some type of impact nexus from a nexus standpoint as well. So, with all these state changes, what has Malden Jenkins been doing to help their clients prepare to get ahead of these type of potential sales and use tax impacts?
Sure. So, at Malden and Jenkins, we've always handled sales tax compliance for our clients anyway. But we were there when Wayfair happened, and we start going through the motions of, okay, what does this mean? And there's some kind of brainstorming meeting of the minds when this happens. And then we really started reaching out to a lot of our clients and asking them where their concerns were. What does this mean to you? What are your concerns? What can we do to help? And the overall consensus was they really didn't know how they were going to be able to be fully compliant with all of the sales tax obligations, especially a lot of the retailers that ship throughout the U.S. They really didn't know how they were going to do it. They didn't know how they were going to do it. They didn't know how they were going to manage from a uh, brainstorming meeting of the minds when this happens. And then we really started reaching out to a lot of our clients and asking them where their concerns were. You know, what does this mean to you? What are your concerns? What can we do to help? And the overall consensus was they really didn't know how they were going to be fully compliant with all of the sales tax obligations, especially a lot of the retailers that ship throughout the U.S. They really didn't know how they were going to manage from like a software standpoint. They didn't know how they're going to manage it from the compliance just to be able to file the returns. So they really, what we got out of that was really they wanted the ability to kind of throw their hands up and say, we want to be compliant. We want that peace of mind to know that we're not on the hook, that we don't have this overlying kind of risk, but that they were not going to be able to maintain it. So we went back to our drawing board and said, how, from a firm standpoint, how will we be able to help you do this? And so we really vamped up our sales tax compliance group. We ramped up the number of staff that we have. We really focused on software, and we're able now to provide services as cheap, in many cases cheaper. They can do it in house. They have the sales tax experts now to do it, and we've really made kind of a good service offering for our clients who want to be fully compliant, which we obviously think that's the best route to go, and now we can do that for them.
Boy, that's great. One of the things that I have the pleasure of doing is speaking with C-level executives from all sorts of businesses. And I was speaking with this distributor just the other day. He was a controller, and he goes, I could hire somebody, take the time to train them up, buy software, and try to put all these things together to keep me compliant, or I could outsource to a firm such as yourself to be able to have that expertise and not have to think about it as well. Because I tell you, a strategy isn't burying your head in the sand. We have to we have to get in front of this. And one of the things that I also notice is every time a client will have some type of notice or penalty, they feel like it's a personal indictment towards their business. But the reality is it's nationwide. It's the cost of doing business, especially on the web today. So, what I'd like to talk about is what are some of the strategies? So let's pretend that I'm a client and I've got a few notices, maybe a penalty here or there, and I only think that I'm doing a handful of transactions, not knowing that I'm going through or going past the threshold. What would you advise me as a potential client of your firm? What would be a good strategy for us to A, get compliant, and then B, help me know what I don't know, help advise me to a point where I'm not going to be impacted by some unknown Nexus threshold.
Sure. I mean, step number one is, like you said, you mentioned know what I don't know. Step number one, at a bare minimums, have a economic nexus study done, and what that's going to do is it's going to analyze your activity. So we're midway through 2020. It would either take into consideration kind of a rolling 12-month period of your activity, or as a baseline we can use 2019 data. But you really want to know what your obligations are. You want to know what your risk is, where your exposure is, what you should be doing compared to what you are doing. That's kind of that initial first step, is to get that economic nexus study done. And then from there, the beautiful thing about being a SALT practice is we're an advisory practice more so than anything else. And we can tailor what we do to really what our clients kind of their goal is. I mentioned earlier, a lot of clients really want to throw their hands up and don't want any part of sales tax. They understand the complexity of it. They don't want to have to be worried about rate changes, sales tax law changes, filing 30 or 40 returns every month. They really want to throw their hands up. But we also have those clients that are involved and do a lot of, they have more of a structured in-house tax department, and they're more involved, and they kind of want to use us as an advisory to help set up the processes, help implement these technology type solutions where we get them up and running, and then they use us kind of as that oversight where we'll do maybe annual reviews or that sort of thing. So we really advise to have the economic nexus study just so you have a framework of what your obligations are, and then based on kind of where you want to go, and as a client and as a business what works best for you, we'll take it from there.
So it sounds like from both a Nexus, not both, but a Nexus study, compliance, technology, you're able to help advise them and create strategies long term to future proof their business.
Absolutely, and that's definitely the goal. The shift now with Wayfair and what your potential sales tax obligations are is much more complex and voluminous than it used to be. And so the idea is to set up a process, set up the technology in place so that you're not reviewing every sales invoice that you have. I mean, business have 10,000 invoices a month, right? You can't do that anymore. So the idea is to set up the technology, set up the processes and the procedures in place. So you're really doing that 10,000 look kind of overview every month of, is it working? Is it right? And that sort of thing. So we'll help implement those.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today, Jeff. Very educational as always. Look, we even dress like each other, so
Great
that's
minds
always
think
good.
alike.
Yeah, we're look like almost there. So thank you very much. With that, I think we've covered what we want to cover today. So everyone have a great day. Any final thoughts from you, Jeff?
Nope, Matt, good looking shirt. I really appreciate you having me. And thanks again.
All right, thank you very much.
Bye.